So, if you've ever found yourself working with TypeScript and React, you've probably run into this tiny little detail that can actually be super confusing. We're talking about file extensions. It might seem small, but there's a really interesting story of mistaken identity happening right inside your code, and today we're going to get to the bottom of it. All right, let's dive right in. In TypeScript, there's this thing called a type assertion. It's basically you, the developer, telling the compiler, look, trust me on this one, I know exactly what this thing is. But, and here's the kicker, TypeScript gives you two different ways to do this. And that, right there, is the start of our whole mystery. And here they are, side by side. You've got the old school angle bracket style, and then you've got this newer as operator. They do the exact same job. So, why? Why would a language that's all about being clear and predictable give you two ways to do the same thing? It just feels a little weird, right? Well, it turns out the answer isn't really about TypeScript at all. Yeah, to get to the bottom of this, we have to bring another player into the story. The main character, really. And it's a big one in the world of web development, React. And we're not just talking about React in general, but a key part of it, called JSX. You've probably seen it. It's that code that looks like HTML, but it's sitting right inside your JavaScript. It's a total game changer, because it lets you build what you see on a web page in a really visual way. Okay, so here's the most important rule about JSX that you need to know for our story. When you use it, TypeScript makes you follow one simple rule. You have to save your file with a .tsx extension. That little X on the end, it's like a secret handshake. It's a signal to the compiler that says, hey, watch out, the code in here is special, it's got JSX inside. And this is exactly where things get messy. See, what happens when you take TypeScript's original classic angle bracket syntax and you try to use it inside one of these special .tsx files? Well, that's where the confusion starts, and the errors. So picture this. You write this line of code right here. To you, a human, it's totally obvious what's going on, right? We're just telling TypeScript that our shape variable is a circle. Easy peasy. But the compiler, because it sees that .tsx file extension, it's basically put on its JSX goggles, and now it sees this line completely differently. And that right there is the identity crisis in a nutshell. Because we're in a .tsx file, the compiler's first thought isn't type assertion. Its first thought is JSX element, like an HTML tag. So it sees circle and thinks, oh cool, a web component, not, oh, a type. The syntax suddenly means two different things at once, and that's just asking for trouble. And boom, you get this classic error. The compiler sees that opening circle tag, and because it thinks it's JSX, it immediately goes looking for the closing circle tag. But it's not there, so it just gives up. Your code breaks, all because the syntax got confused. So yeah, this was a huge problem. It was confusing and messy. The TypeScript team needed a fix, and they came up with a really smart two-part solution that just cleaned everything up. First up, they gave us the as operator. Its entire reason for existing was to fix this exact problem. It does the same thing, type assertion, but the syntax is totally different. There is absolutely no way a compiler is going to mistake value as type name for a piece of JSX. It's just clean, unmistakable. And the second part of the fix was making the rules official. They basically said, from now on, .tsx is the one and only place for JSX code. This created a super simple black and white rule for the compiler. If I see a .ts file, angle brackets are types. If I see a .tsx file, they're components. No more guessing. Okay, so that's the backstory. But what does it all mean for you writing code right now? Well, let's talk about the best practices. Because today, the rules for writing clean TypeScript are actually super, super simple. This table breaks it all down. Basically, use .ts for all your pure logic, your helper functions, your API calls, stuff that doesn't actually draw anything on the screen. And save .tsx for only the files that have JSX in them, which is almost always going to be your React components. And for type assertions, just make your life easy. Use the as operator everywhere. You have to use it in .tsx files anyway, so using it in .ts files too just makes everything consistent. And this really gets to the core of why these rules are so important. It's not just about making the compiler happy. It's about making your code readable for other humans. When another developer on your team opens a .tsx file, they instantly know, okay, this is a UI component. It makes the whole project predictable. You spend less time trying to figure out what a file does and more time actually building things. You're keeping, as they say, developer surprise to a minimum. So after that whole journey, it all comes down to these three simple rules. 1. Writing a React component with that HTML-like stuff? Use .tsx. 2. Writing any other kind of TypeScript code? Use .ts. And 3. Need to tell TypeScript what type something is? Just use as. That's it. Stick to those, and your code will be modern, clean, and super easy for everyone to understand. It's pretty wild to think that this whole big issue, this whole identity crisis, started because of a simple fight over angle brackets. It's a perfect example of how one tiny little syntax choice can have a huge impact on our day-to-day coding lives. And it gets me thinking, what other little syntax change or language feature has saved you a ton of debugging headaches? Anyway, thanks for tuning in.